What is up, everybody? This is Jason here with Aggro Gaming, and I'm here today to give you the best Cold War multiplayer settings. So the first thing I want to start with is letting everyone know I play on PlayStation, and this is my controller settings for the PS5. So we can go right in and start with controller. The first thing that I always like to do is I increase the horizontal stick sensitivity and vertical stick sensitivity. I do this to make it about 8 for horizontal and 7 for vertical. The reason behind this is I'm going to be looking a lot more left to right than up and down because COD is not a vertical game as much as it is horizontal. So that's a setting that feels good for me. The next thing I like to change is I like to reduce the ADS stick sensitivity down to 0.8. And the reason I do this is it just feels a little bit better because it brings that sense down when I'm aiming down sights so I can make more precise shots. After I've done that, I like to go into button layout, and personally, I choose tactical. Again, I'm just using a regular controller, not any specialty controller, but it feels really good to have crouch on my right stick and melee instead for circle. The next thing I like to look at is aim response curve type. Now, I don't know exactly how these function, but personally, linear feels the best to me, and it feels like it makes the most sense. I feel like my shots are really on point, I'm not missing, and I'm never not where I shouldn't be aiming, in the sense that some of these other settings make me feel like I'm going too fast or too slow at times. So I would highly recommend trying out linear. Let me know what you think, leave it in the comments. The next thing I like to do is actually remove the controller vibration and the trigger effect. And the trigger effects for the PS5 controller, but I just find that a vibrating controller, although it feels cool sometimes, is more annoying than not, and it can lead to me missing shots. The next thing I like to adjust, and I guess this is more Warzone centric, is to switch armor behavior from apply 1 to apply to all. And this is just because I only have to hold down triangle once when I'm putting my plates on, and I don't have to do it over again. And you could still cancel it and such if you need to. I just find it's helpful to have it that way. One last thing I want to cover here is the parachute auto deploy. I have this as enabled right now because I'm sometimes away from my controller. But if you really want to be as competitive as possible in Warzone, you want to go ahead and disable that because it'll allow you to drop a little bit later. You can, manually pull your parachute, so get closer to the ground, land and get that loot box first in the beginning of a game, and end up beating the guy that's using the auto deploy functionality. The next section I want to go over is the graphics section. The first thing I like to look at here is the colorblind modes. Personally, I find that the enemy colors are really hard to see for the default, which is this orangish red color. So I personally like to move it over to this yellow color because it stands out a lot better, and I see things a lot better in my minimap and when I'm aiming down sights and when I see enemies. And then, for party color you can choose, but I like to do a light cyan for my party. And then for myself, I make myself blue. And then allies, I would just keep blue. That's just me personally. Again, all personal preference, but the main thing I would change is the enemy color to make them a little bit more visible on the map. The next thing that I suggest you change, and this is so important, is changing the field of view from the default of 80 up to somewhere between 105 and 120, I would say. I personally like to lie at 110, and it is personal preference, but this makes an absolutely huge difference because you're going to see people that you never saw before on the corners of your screen by using this field of view. It's a great functionality that was added recently to console where before it was only on PC, so I suggest you use it. Something to keep in mind here is changing the ADS field of view down to independent. And the reason I do this is because when I'm aiming down sights, I usually have someone in my sights already. Or I know where I want to look, and if I keep the field of view high, it's going to show me a lot of extra information on the corners of the screen. I don't want that. I want to be able to see right in front of me, and keeping the ADS field of view independent from my regular field of view is excellent. The next thing I want to cover is motion blur. I recommend turning that off completely and disabling it. And this is because although this gives a nice cinematic effect when I'm turning and moving around on the map, it actually makes it harder to see myself and if there's any enemies on my screen because everything blurs. So I recommend removing this so you can absolutely see everything when you're making turns and moving around. Next up, for audio, I like to turn the music volume down to somewhere between 70 and 80. I'm going to turn it down to 70 for now. and the dialogue volume. Yeah, and the reason I do this is because these sound effects are not as important, so I turn them down a bit, so I can hear things that are more important, like reloading noises and footsteps. Something else I like to do, and this is because I use headphones, is switch the audio preset from Treyarch Mix to bass boosted, and that's the one that makes me feels the best for me. Sometimes I go high boost sometimes too, but anywhere around that is good. Again, it's personal preference, but I would turn it up a little bit because you're going to hear some things that you might not have heard before and get some more intel on the ground. The last thing that I recommend updating here is turning off ally health bars. And the reason I suggest this is because whether or not I see my allies' health is not going to change whether or not they're going to die. If they're going to die, they're going to die, right? And, I think it clutters my screen a little bit. I'm much more worried about how much health the enemy players have. So I like to turn off ally health bars and make sure enemy health bars are on, so I can absolutely see when anyone's low and who need to finish off, and it just gives me a lot of really good information on the field. Keyboard and mouse, I don't use a keyboard, so I can't give any real settings here. Account information, this is just all your personal, information and your pin and such. I wouldn't worry too much about changing anything here. I personally like to disable crossplay, and the reason I do this is because I find that I don't fare as well against PC players, but when I'm using a controller, but that's just me. If you want to play with your friends across Xbox and PC and stuff when you're playing on PlayStation, or vice versa, or any combination, then you want to keep that on. But yeah, those are just kind of my review. I find them really helpful in game. I hope you guys can find them helpful too. Please leave any questions or comments down below. I'd love to get back to it. And please, if you enjoyed this video and other videos by Aggro Gaming, like, comment, and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, guys. Peace.